We have to see female leaders. We have to make sure that people are exposed to those female leaders. And, because they are held to a higher standard, and I think a lot of people are rooting for them to fail in some cases, how we can support them more.
Our goal with Argent, and this is why you're the embodiment of it, is to offer representation, because if you can see it, you can believe that you can be it, and you can also believe that it's possible. And that's ultimately the challenge that we have at the presidential level, is that we haven't seen that before. And I think you have modeled this by being on CNN, NBC, famously the co-host of the Today Show. You've been the face of news my entire existence.
Well, that's really why I went to CBS. Ultimately, it was probably not the best career move for me, even though I have no regrets. But I think it was a culture clash in a way. I went to the most traditional network that I think really favors people who've come through the system within that network. So I was viewed as not only an outsider and a disruptor, but, my gender was also different too. So I think it was really hard for that culture to wrap its head around who I was as a person and embrace me for
Mhm.
a lot of different reasons.
Mm.
But I really wanted little girls and little boys and big boys and big girls to see a female in an authority role that heretofore they had not really been exposed to. That someone with lipstick and, not wearing a suit and tie could actually be someone who could deliver the news fairly and, you know, with competence and confidence. And um, that was really the driving force for me to make that move. And so I couldn't agree with you more. We have to see female leaders. We have to make sure that people are exposed to those female leaders and that, because they are held to a higher standard, and I think a lot of people are rooting for them to fail in some cases, um, how we can support them more
Mhm.
so that, they will do well and then women coming after them will do well. Because what happens is if they don't, then it's hard for a lot of women. We've seen this time and time again. And then I was taking a walk this morning with a friend of mine and we were saying, you know, how can women support women more? She has a daughter, and she said some of the challenges for her professionally is she feels like women don't open as many doors for her as the men do.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really interesting topic that we should talk about. And how do we in a competitive world both be competitive and try to achieve and excel, but also supportive of our colleagues. Because it's interesting, a lot of men aren't going to support each other because they're going to want to crush the other one,
They
right?
they do, though.
You
I
think
feel like
so?
very differently, and I think women are catching up to that.
How do you think men support each
I
other?
think I look at, like, these privileged men, that are coming out of name insert Ivy League school here, and
Hmm,
they
hmm.
show up they open their wallets for one another. Say one starts a business, one goes into finance, one they'll bring their business to one another, so I think
Uh-huh.
that they're trained more to or I have a job we have a job, let's go golfing, I want you to meet this buddy.
I think you're right when it comes to networking with different people in different jobs where they could be helpful, but I'm thinking about like one single company
Yep.
and people vying for promotions and vying for, the attention of the boss or whatever. I'm not sure in those confines if men are going to really help each other.
I think we are in a moment in time that is, we've made so much progress collectively as a gender, and that doesn't stop in light of the election outcome. I think that your generation came up during this under the scarcity mindset where
Yes.
you were pitted against one another intentionally, and that is very much a result of the patriarchy.
Mhm.
Because if you're focused on one another, you're not focused on dismantling the constructs that are not allowing women to move ahead and
Yeah.
succeed. I think my generation has been gifted this mindset of abundance. And I
Mhm.
think women are starting to recognize that all boats rise with the tide. And they're going to be bad actors, male and female. But we are benefiting from bringing men into the conversation around women and being a part of the solution because they do have a lot of the power, they have a lot of the money, they have a lot of
Yeah.
the access. But I also think what we were collectively able to do around Vice President Harris in this election is pretty remarkable. I think women insulated her, so you didn't see as much coverage around likability and some of the things that happened to Secretary Clinton. So I think that we're progressing. I also think we're talking about like ambition and investment and money and ways that were historically taboo.
Yes, but then I look at, like, the amount of venture capital dollars that go
Oh,
into women's startups, right? And I'm trying to do a documentary about the disparities in women's health and women's health research,
totally.
and isn't it like 2% or something?
It's roughly 2%. I don't know what the most recent statistic was. The highest I've ever seen it is 2.9%.
So that is really a travesty. So
Yes.
you think about all the progress we've made, yes, and bringing but just that number is a stark reminder
Yes.
of how little confidence and faith a lot of these venture capital firms have in female startups and how women and what women need in society in general and efforts to address those through startups and entrepreneurs are not taken that seriously.
Totally. Yeah, it's pattern recognition too. So, yeah, I mean, I could go on about that all day because
That's
it's something I
interesting.
experience
Um,
firsthand.
pattern recognition. What do you mean exactly? Sorry, I know I'm asking you a question, but
Yes. No, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's we have seen what a guy in a hoodie that is a college dropout, we've seen what he can achieve. And so because I've seen that form of success, I'm going to put my money there
right.
versus
Isn't that crazy?
yes, again
But
because
it's a
this
real thing.
it's a very real thing, and money is everything in this world, like, in the startup world, I mean. So when you start a company, it allows you to fail and have these micro failures, which are necessary in building something that's ultimately successful. It also allows you to buy eyeballs. So there are a lot of consumer brands that are male founded that received so much more money that, of course, you know about because they had $500 million in funding compared to women get not even 2% of that, you know?
Right. So
So
success begets success.
yes.